Hello and welcome to Let's Talk About Money. Today I'm chatting with Maddy Alexander-Grout, a UK-based visibility strategist, ADHD coach, and advocate for people with hidden disabilities. Welcome, Maddy. Thank you for being here.
Oh, you're so welcome. Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. So I've given a brief introduction, but I'd love for you to dive a little deeper into who you are, what you do, and who you serve.
Okay, so I like to refer to myself as a multi-potentialite. I do many things. I think that's the ADHD brain in me. Basically I do a lot of things, but mainly for the same people. So I serve neurodivergents, people who have got hidden disabilities, people who have got hidden struggles, mainly from sort of marginalised or underrepresented backgrounds. I help them to be really visible. I help them to be better with their money. I help them to make more money. Or if they've got spending addictions, which quite a lot of people who have got ADHD do, we focus on things like money management and impulse spending.
So you're supporting a certain group of people
Yeah,
in various ways, right?
essentially, yes. So I create content on TikTok and Instagram, mainly around ADHD and how it shows up for people when it comes to money or business.
Very cool. So before we dive into specifically how this is going to affect entrepreneurs and anybody with money, tell us a
Yeah.
little bit about how the ADHD brain is different from that of neurotypical folks.
So I think the best way to describe it is that it's a completely different operating system. So neurotypicals, they have a, in inverted commas, kind of normal brain, whereas I like to think of mine as, it's kind of like the same. Everybody on this planet, right, has a different brain. But when it comes to ADHD, there are lots of different things that affect our brains. So it's like, if you're kind of putting like imagine putting a DVD into a tape deck, for example, it's not going to work very well in there. So our brains learn in a different way. We feel emotions in different ways, and really, very much, massively, our money shows up for us in different ways. So ADHD brains, they are just a different operating system. We're all people. We all have thoughts and feelings, beliefs and values. But when you have an ADHD brain, it's very different to somebody who has a neurotypical brain.
So let's get into it then. How does this show up around money specifically?
In pretty much every way possible. So with money, I mean, first of all, money management. Like ADHD means that we have struggles with executive function. We have struggles when it comes to things like memory and kind of absorbing information. So when it comes to typical ways of money management, like spreadsheets and graphs and things that some people find really easy, we don't at all. Impulse tendencies really do impact our spending habits. You've probably heard of ADHD tax. So ADHD tax is, an average of £1,700, $1,700 over a year, and this is basically the money mishaps, I guess, that happen when we have an ADHD brain. It could be things like forgetting to pay bills or forgetting to cancel subscriptions, or not having the confidence to make money because we've got internalized ableism and we don't think that we're good enough because society thinks that we're not good enough. We listen to all those negative things that come into our world, and therefore we think, I can't start a business. But also it impacts us in ways like jobs, for example. So for me, I was a serial job hopper. In 1 year, I had 17 jobs. True fact.
Wow.
Yeah, I just didn't fit into the working world. It wasn't meant for me. People don't understand that when you have neurodivergence in your workforce, that they need to learn in different ways. They need to be managed in different ways, and that's quite difficult sometimes, especially for those who don't necessarily know that they're neurodivergent. They don't know that they're struggling with things. So it can show up in many different ways. Also, as well, things like being risky with decisions. People who have got ADHD are, there is a stat out there, I can't remember what it is, but we're much more likely to fall for things like scams, or pyramid schemes, or things that, sound like a good idea. We're very susceptible to things like sales. So if somebody tries to sell us something, we're like anybody's. So there are so many different ways that it can impact our finances. But one of the things that I see so frequently is that people who have got ADHD think that they're bad with money. And they're not always bad with money. They just are trying to do it like a neurotypical, which makes them feel like they're bad with money. So it's a confidence thing as well.
And the square peg round hole kind of thing just doesn't work. And I feel a lot of empathy as you're speaking, because I know people with ADHD and I love them. And you're right, these things come up when they're kind of operating in this world that's not built for them. I think a lot like women who are operating in under the patriarchy, that was not built for us. I sense that kind of frustration from some people who I work with and who I love who have ADHD. So let's talk about strategies that we can employ. Now, I'm sensing that regular budgeting is not a thing in the ADHD world. Educate me, Maddy. Tell me about it.
It can be. So, just like with anybody, you can get people who have got ADHD who are absolutely fantastic at managing their money, because they hyper focus on it, and it's the thing that, they want to learn. So for example, like I spent most of my early kind of like from about being a teenager, being obsessed with spending money. Like it burnt a hole in my pocket. I had a really bad spending addiction. It was only when I kind of looked back after my ADHD diagnosis that I went, oh, that's what I was doing. I was dopamine seeking. So the problem that we've got is that we have dopamine seeking behaviors, and that can show up in so many different ways. So for me, it showed up as an alcohol addiction. So I spent an awful lot of money on booze. I spent an awful lot of money on things like clothes and, being out. And, there was a vicious cycle that went on for about 5 years, which ended up with me being in a lot of debt. So that's quite something that I've noticed a lot. But in terms of strategies, money management, it really depends how you like to do it. So for me, I have pots in my bank account. So there are lots of different bank accounts where you can segregate different pots of money for different things. I have a money date with my husband at the beginning of the month. So literally, as soon as he gets paid, as soon as I pay myself because I'm self-employed, we sit down and we work out what goes into each pot. And it's always difficult to have that money conversation. But the more you can talk about money, the more open you can be, the more relaxed you will be with it. I think ADHDers have a problem when it comes to checking our bank accounts. We look at it and go, oh, there's not enough money in there. I don't want to look at it again. But that's kind of one of the worst things that you can do. So the more you look, the more in control you will feel. And when you've got ADHD, feeling in control is something that helps you to be better at managing it. Spreadsheets, don't even show me a spreadsheet. I hate it. So I use paper trackers. So I've got an app called Mad About Money, and we've created a load of like free PDF downloads that people can use to kind of track their spending or track their income. Track even kind of things like groceries or bathroom stuff. So one of the things that I recognized in my ADHD was that I forget what I bought, so I end up buying loads of the same thing, and it's like, oh, I've got 4 bottles of ketchup in my cupboard. Do I really need 4 bottles of ketchup? Probably not. So I started like an itinerary of things that I had, and then when I needed them, I'd cross them off so that I could go to the supermarket. And that really helped me, because again, at one point I realized that like I had a cupboard that had about 75 shower gels in it, and I'm like, I always smell really nice, but I don't think we need that many. So it was kind of like regulating me by writing it down. And I always find that if I write something down with pen and paper, I'm actually a lot more likely to stick to it. Tracking budgets. So tracking your budget, whether you've got pots or whether you take cash out. Cash is also another good way to actually physically see what you're spending. But I think having things like the itineraries really help me, because I know then that I'm not going to go out and just buy things for the sake of buying them. Keeping track on spending. So my biggest tip is, if you struggle with impulse spending, if you're somebody who likes Amazon, or Shein, or any of these like other apps that, are really easily accessible, or you're a shopper, you're an internet shopper, don't have your card details stored anywhere. So you physically have to type them in if you want to actually go and make that decision, make that buying decision, because it really does help. Because I know, for one, I've also got dyscalculia. So numbers, I'm like, if I've got to actually type the numbers out, I'm like, no. And by the time it's been declined 4 times because I've typed it in wrong, I'm just like, no, I'll forget it. So that does help. Being kind to yourself, and actually realizing that, yes, you have ADHD. There are going to be times where you might run over because of your time blindness. You might not get back in time to sort your parking ticket out. You might miss deadlines or events, or like, there have been so many times where I bought gig tickets, forgotten to put them in my diary, and then it's gone past. And I'm like, when was that gig I was supposed to be going? Last week. Brilliant. Yeah. So we do lose money because of our executive function, and that can be really hard for a lot of people. And then we put shame and blame on ourselves, but it's not us. We're not at fault. Our brains are wired differently, so it's about trying to find space, and be kind of a little bit more aware of the fact that actually it does take a lot more effort for us to be good with money.
I'm hearing a lot of consistent effort, and intentional effort is really what folks with ADHD are going to need to be able to thrive in, at least in the money space. But there's this thing that I used to say when I was teaching was, what's necessary for one is often good for all. And I think that even for neurotypical folks, to have money dates, to check in, to be aware of what's going in your bank account, really organizing your money life is so beneficial. And then also that gentleness that you're talking about, and that understanding, self-understanding, is so important, because otherwise we have this nasty cycle that then to get the dopamine, we're spending. And I'm speaking about neurotypical folks and neurodivergent folks. It's across the board. And also it's 2025. So I think everybody feels a little bit bad about their money because the world is on fire. So I'll just acknowledge that there are folks who are feeling just generally overwhelmed, but these are some things that you can employ in your life that are really going to help you get to your financial goals. So let's talk about financial overwhelm then, because I think it probably does show up a little bit more in neurodivergent folks. So what's a realistic first step when you're just so overwhelmed with everything? What can we do?
So as a neurodivergent, I think the best thing to do is actually sit down with somebody who's neurotypical that actually can help you to sort things out.
Oh, that's so interesting.
Whether it's a partner or a friend or a parent, if you want to let your parents in on your finances, that can always be a can of worms. But helping somebody to body double you while you're kind of looking at all the stuff, that does help.
Can you just go back and tell us, for those who don't know, what is body doubling and why is it important for people with ADHD?
So body doubling is essentially where you do something with somebody else, whether it's online or whether you have somebody sitting with you in the same room. They don't even have to talk to you. They could just be sitting with you in the same room. And being quite honest, I have no clue why it works, but it does. It's one of those things where it's the accountability. It's the kind of knowing that somebody's there forces you to take that action, and being mindful of that action. I think that's how it helps. There must be a more scientific terminology for it of why it works, but it's very useful.
It's forcing us to be intentional with our time. That's great.
It is. And I
Yeah.
think we need to be intentional with everything. And I think one of the best ways that you can be intentional with your spending, because the thing is, right, we need treats. Like, I'm not saying to anybody who's got ADHD to not go and buy those dopamine things. But if you've got dopamine seeking behavior, which lots of people do when they have ADHD, it's about being conscious. It's not about going and, splurging on Amazon just because you've got 5 minutes spare in the day and you're feeling a bit bored. Identify the feeling. So if you notice a behavior where, like, maybe you might spend money when you're sad, you might spend money when you're bored, or like if something's happened in your day, right the way through to, like, you might reward yourself if you've been good throughout the day, or if you've done a piece of work that you need to do. That's fine, but be conscious about that decision. So, and if you are not feeling like you're in control, if you're not feeling like you're conscious, for 2 weeks, write down every single thing that you buy and then go back and look at it. Because I can guarantee you that you're going to look back and go, I don't think I needed 5 coffees. You probably, you might need one. You might need a little pick me up at some point. And have a budget. So when it comes to budgeting, I think most people learn about budgeting, either in school or in college, or if you're lucky, your parents might teach you about it. And they will always say, you've got your bill money, you've got your gas, your electric, your phone bill, your internet, like all of these boring things that everyone's like really resents paying for, right? So the best way to create a budget is to make it flexible, but also include things that you enjoy. So I have a fun fund. My fun fund goes on like gig tickets or festivals or going out with my friends, or taking the kids out. I've even got an ice cream fund in my bank account, so that when
love that.
When the kids ask me for ice cream over the summer, I'm like, sure. Like, knock yourself out, because it makes them go really hyper and then they run around a field for an hour and like go home and pass out. And I'm like, but it's about adding things into your budget. Self-care, self-care is really important. Once a month, I will treat myself to some new hair dye, or I'll treat myself to a massage or something like that. But that's because I've allowed flexibility in my budget. And that's the thing that I think puts a lot of people off budgeting, because they think it's boring. It's only boring if you make it boring.
I also hear a lot of the all or nothing perspective. Like, I must be perfect. And when I am not perfect, because nobody is, inevitably I'm going to screw up, then it's all going to go out the window. Is this something you see with the people you work with as well?
Absolutely. And myself. So when I was in £45,000 of debt, the first time, I have to add, I am a money specialist who has been in lots of debt. I've been there, I've bought that, done that, even been there, bought that, been there, done that, bought the t-shirts. That's the
Climb back out.
Climb back out of there.
Yes.
I've done all of the things. I think there's probably not a single money situation that I haven't been in. I've fallen for the pyramid schemes. I've been scammed. I have made the wrong decisions with business partners because I actually don't have any gut feeling. And my gut feeling is always, everyone's lovely, everyone's going to help me, and they're not always. So there are, I've had all of the things, but I do see the all or nothing, and sometimes all can be really fun, because if you hyper focus and you think, right, I'm going to sort my money out, like, nobody else is going to sort your money out for you. The only person who's got that power is you. And if it takes you sitting down with somebody else, if it takes you downloading my app, Mad About Money, and coming and chatting with other people who are going through the same thing to get you to get your bum into gear, just do it. There's only so little time, and I see a lot of people who are kind of in like a victim mindset, and they just assume that they're always going to be bad with money. I was that person. I was that person who was like, I'm never going to be debt free. £45,000 at the age of 26, that's a hole, and I had to climb out of that hole. And I found ways to cut my bills. I found ways to make extra money. I followed the guy who had like the reduced to clear sticker gun around the supermarket to see what he was gonna like reduce. And if it wasn't what I wanted, I'd be like, can you just, reduce that thing? It's about being creative, and that's one of the things with an ADHD brain. We are creative. We can think outside the box. We do have those skills, and if we continue to stay in that cycle where we think we're bad with money and we think we're never going to get better, we will always be bad with money. We will always never get better. So it's about changing your mindset as much as it is anything else. And if you haven't got enough money for something, think, how can I get this money? Can I make more money? Can I save for longer? Don't just, don't get yourself into debt to buy things. And I've got this like set of rules that I use. So if I'm there and I'm about to make a money decision, like I'm always conscious with my purchases. So I've got the thing. I'm like, do I want this? Have I got it in my budget? Do I need it? Or do I want it? There is a difference between the wants and the needs. Have I really, really thought about it? Have I slept on it? Have I kept it in my cart for 48 hours? Or am I being impulsive? And then it's a question of, like, my final decision is, if somebody gave me this object, the thing that I want to buy, or they gave me the equivalent in cash, which would I rather have? 9 times out of 10, it's the cash. So I'm like,
that's
okay,
such a good reframe.
it is.
Yes.
Yeah.
Huh. Okay. So let's talk about then visibility and entrepreneurs.
Yes.
And how this affects folks who run their own business. And also, I want to get into that instability of income and how the heck is someone with ADHD supposed to deal with this? Tell me.
My biggest thing when it came to entrepreneurship. So I've been self-employed for nearly 10 years now. For the first 7 of those, I think I was an awful entrepreneur. I had all of the ideas, and I basically, anytime my brain went, oh, I'm going to do that, I followed every single thing. So I had a million squillion things going on. I mean, I still do, but like slightly more reined in.
With a system.
Yeah, it's a smaller system. And everything comes under the same umbrella. So if I have to park something, it's not that bad. But it's having multiple revenue streams is the thing that changed everything for me. But also having reoccurring and passive income. And when I say passive, it's never like, you don't just wake up one day and you've got £1 million in your bank. You have to work hard at some point in that journey to make that money, but it's more on the front end. So, for example, I've got a membership which is for neurodivergent entrepreneurs, not just neurodivergents, actually. It's basically for anybody. It's for anybody who wants to be seen, heard, and understood in their business. And it's all about showing up authentically, showing up as the person who you are, in line with your values, in line with the people who you serve. And I've got 365 members. They're all paying members. And every day I get new people joining my membership, and it's amazing. And that is a reoccurring every single month. I know that before I've even got out of bed, I've got like £3,500 that is, already my monthly money, right? And then it's a low ticket. It's £10 a month, like that's probably about $7. Like it's not expensive, but people get loads of value in there. And I show up for an hour a day, maybe, sometimes less, occasionally more. But people get a really, really good deal being in there, and it helps them with their video content. It helps them with visibility strategy, and it helps me because it's the top end of my funnel. So, people come in, they see me, and they're like, oh, Maddy's amazing. She gives all this amazing value. It's really great. Actually, I could probably do with working on a one-to-one with Maddy. Or maybe I need to buy one of her like higher ticket things. Like, I've got a high ticket course, which is, again, like, it's called Amplify Your Influence. It's all about visibility strategy. So the majority of people who come on that course with me are people who have joined my £10 a month membership, because you then get to deliver that value. So,
and I love that you can see that intentional thread. Yes, you're doing a lot of things. There's a lot of things going on, but because your top of funnel is pulling in a lot of people, and then they're just getting more and more of you, more of what they want. It's all, there's a thread that runs through it. And then for you, it's paying you, which we love. We love that it's paying you recurringly, but also less work, less continual work, because you're able to just attract these people. That's brilliant.
Do you know what? My membership is something that's massively helped my mental health as well, because I've filled it with amazing people who are all like, they're all really inclusive. Like, lots of them are neurodivergent. I really support the queer and non-binary communities as well. I've got lots of different amazing different characters and different backgrounds and different perspectives. And it's just, a wonderful place. And, I've got lots of hidden disabilities as well. So this is why I'm a hidden disability advocate. And I basically, when I set this membership up, I was like, I don't really know how it's going to go. I have lots of disabilities. I don't know if I'm always going to be able to show up. But there are days now where I can't show up, and I'll pop a message in my group saying, hey guys, not feeling it today. Really sorry, but I'm not here. What do you guys want to do? And they'll just all crack on together. Like, they're amazing. So it's just a really supportive community, but it's not just supportive with me supporting them. They support each other. They support me. And it's lovely. Really nice.
Oh, it sounds like a beautiful corner of the internet. I love that.
It's one of the best corners of the internet, I think.
Right? Amazing. So let's talk about something not quite as amazing. I want to know about the gaps that you see in the financial industry specifically when it comes to supporting people with ADHD or invisible disabilities. If you could get on your soapbox right now and say something.
We could be here for a while.
Go for it.
So I think banks, fintechs, I am very privileged to actually do a lot of work in this space. And recently I've worked on quite a lot of disability projects to make finance more inclusive in the UK, which I love. But there's still a lot of gaps. I think because we're more susceptible to getting into debt, we don't necessarily, not just from an ADHD perspective, but from a fully neurodiversity, from a neurodivergent perspective, we have things like dyslexia, dyscalculia. Dyscalculia is a very common co-existing, co-occurring condition with ADHD. And money is all about numbers. So I've struggled ever since I was a child. Maths. I had to do my maths GCSE twice because I failed it both times. I am not good when it comes to maths. But yet I'm really good with my money. And sometimes people don't see that there's ask me to add something up or work out a percentage, and I'm like, ooh, hell no. But I think there is lack of awareness when it comes to neurodivergent conditions and how they show up for people when it comes to money. So it's debts, it's impulse spending. I think the world of banking is getting better. We have things like alerts to analyze spending patterns. It's like, are you spending too much money in this particular area? Do you want to carry on doing that, or do you need some help? So, especially in the UK, I think because I am shouting very hard about this, and there are actually some really brilliant entrepreneurs in the UK and brilliant disabled charities who are really helping to get people to grips with it. The gap is closing, but we've still got a lot of work to do. And it's about understanding that, not every single person is the same. A banking app is not going to work the same for a neurodivergent as it will do for a neurotypical. So it's about making people's lives easier and actually understanding where those issues lie. And I've written a book, actually, which I'm hoping will help to educate the world on how neurodivergent money stuff works. When I got approached by the publisher, they said, do you want to write a book about ADHD and money? And I was like, no, that sounds really boring. So I thought, I need to write a book that's really exciting, that actually people want to read. So it's not just about money. It's about love. It's about friendships. It's about children. It's about because money shows up in all of these areas, right? Money is not just money. Money is a flow. Money is an energy. And that will affect your friendships. It will, I was a massive, massive overgiver. So like people pleasing is again another thing. It's like I would be the first person at university to be like, who wants the shots? Like, who's, party animal trying to please people. And then I'd go home and I'd be like, I've spent £100, $100, whatever. Why did I do that? So it shows up in your friendships, it shows up in your marriage, it shows up in your relationship, it will show up in your parenting style. How you teach your kids about money is really important. So I wrote a book that's not boring. In fact, it's quite sweary in places. It's very raw. It's very vulnerable. I've told people in this book things that I've never told anybody else in my entire life. So I'm terrified about it coming out because I'm like, oh God, how many cans of worms? How much oversharing is oversharing?
It's okay. Now we all want the tea. So it's going to be called Mad About Money. When does it come out?
So it's out in April. So April the 24th. So we're about 6 weeks away. Very exciting. And I can't wait. But also there is that nervous, like, oh my God, who am I going to have pissed off?
Yeah, but also who will you have helped? And I know that we're all going to be lapping it up. So I can't wait. Where will we be able to get it?
So in the US, you can get it on Amazon. It's actually going to be available in some bookstores as well. I'm not sure which ones, but it will be around. You will be able to find it. But like the best place to go for it is Amazon, I think.
Oh, I can't wait for it to make its way across the pond to me, and I will be shouting it from the rooftops as well. We're running out of time now, Maddy, but thank you so much for your openness and your willingness to share and all the knowledge that you've imparted on my audience today and me. I so enjoyed speaking to you. Thank you so much.
Oh, thank you for having me.
Anytime, and I may have you back once the book comes out too.
That would be amazing.
Brilliant. Thank you.